Aye, wary traveler, there's always room at the Sleeping Grush. You warm up by the fire and have a mug of ale whilst they get your room ready. In the meantime, tell us all about your adventures in Phelan. I'm Lore Master Matt.
And I'm Phelan Jon.
And welcome back to the Sleeping Grush podcast, your source for information from every corner of the world of Phelan. We are brought to you today by Cardboard Corner Cafe, the best game cafe in Kansas City, where some of their April specials include the Monte Cristo waffle, which has ham, turkey, Swiss, and garlic aioli on it, and the lemon poppy seed waffle, a poppy seed waffle with lemon cream cheese drizzle, fresh blueberries, and whipped cream. And if that doesn't get you salivating, there's plenty of games on the wall and a whole list of drinks behind the counter. So it'll make your visit a special one to the Cardboard Corner Cafe, now in 2 locations, Overland Park and Lenexa.
What's on your table, Matt? He's sitting there pointing at me because we're recording a podcast. We're in the fancy role playing room here at Cardboard Corner. We get done. He gets some of his intros, and then he's like, staring at me. And I let him hang because it was fun. So we begin our podcast with a couple of standard segments. One of which is on the table, and we're going to ask Lore Master Matt what he is currently painting from the world of Phelan.
So last week I was working on the Drakahol and the Golett Druid, and I finished those. Thank you very much.
I'm stealing that color palette for the Druid.
Absolutely. You should. I'm gonna post them.
The recipe
with Phelan Friday and the recipe. This week I have started my Varkarl, and I've got a test figure up because I was curious about this paint scheme that I had stolen from an old B Kung Fu movie where all of the baddies wore this red and blue combination. Of course, the good guy wore white because that's
what they do,
right?
Yeah.
And the bad guys were twirling their mustaches and wearing dark colors. But anyway, there's some of these new colors that just came out from the Pro Krill, and somebody was nice enough to bring me back a set of those from Adepticon, and I've already employed 2 of them, and they're amazing. And I'm really enjoying this Wampang monk. It's beautiful.
Very nice. And pictures of it can be seen on?
It'll be up on Friday with Phelan Friday on the Discord.
Painting Showcase.
Mm-hmm.
#Painting Showcase channel.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty. I've seen it already because we have a little internal channel. We share what we're painting on, and I've seen Matt's work, and of course it's just there to make me jealous. So
that's exactly why I do it too.
It's the only reason.
Every stroke is John will love.
What is more likely, that you are doing the Wampang monk to make me jealous, or to actually play a game with it?
Make you jealous.
Ooh, see? I wasn't kidding around.
I will have a full free band of them ready to go when I'm done with this, up to 275 though. So I am looking.
That's the last one? Oh no, that's your test model.
My test model.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Okay.
My test model.
I'm still ahead of you, so I might be able to pull it off.
You're way ahead of me.
Yeah, that's because I'm the Henry Ford of painting. Matt's produced a whole 275 plus supports, and Matt's doing one dude.
I got one guy, yeah. One person.
Yeah,
that's me in a nutshell. So the second segment that we open up with is Spike and Win, where one of us talks about a game that we've recently played. And John, I think you've got a game that you played against Chris Smith this last week that you want to talk about.
Yes. So we have, I've been saying all along, I'm one of the people that serves as a sparring partner, tackling dummy for my friends that play Freeblades here in Kansas City.
Is it more tackling or more dummy?
Dummy.
I'm just curious.
Are you kidding me? Seen some of my moves lately? Goodness. There's no tackling. I'll do all the tackling. So I play in the campaigns, and I play, these other adventures and things that we do, these participation games. So it's really more, you need a road game.
Yeah.
You need a game 3.
Right.
Whatever it is. And you need tournament practice. And we've just switched over to a new tournament pack with the end of Adepticon, right? So that's going to last through next Adepticon. All the official events, people can do what they want, right? Out there in the world, they want to run an event. You don't have to follow those rules, but a lot of people do. It's very common is that you got big events like Adepticon, GenCon, ReaperCon, whatever. So why not practice by doing your local one the same way?
Right.
However you want to do it. But we have a standard for each year. This year it's 275. And the scenarios are previews of what we think we're doing for scenarios in the 2.0
Right.
working title 2.0.
Right.
The update to Freeblades, the changes to Freeblades.
And those scenarios have already been tested here in Kansas City.
Most of them, yeah. Most of them. We didn't do exactly the same set, so there's some work there, but they've all been played.
Right.
Alpha testing. There's only beta testing here has been that tournament. There's been some in Michigan, a couple other places. So we played a scenario out of the new tournament pack. So we both had 275 forces. The scenario was Trials of Gravis. And these scenarios are in there, all scenarios you know and love. Right. So what they've been modified is how you win them. You gain victory points. Breaking someone doesn't auto win the game. Doesn't auto win the game. And is not a discriminator in type of victory for tournament play.
Right.
So, this is his first chance. Just came back from Adepticon, first time playing these.
Right.
So, and the mechanics of it are the same. You're going to the center of the table where these 3 trial stones are, and you're trying to solve them. You solve more of them, you win, basically. Okay. And he was playing Rochelle, like we've talked about. You've taken pictures of his force from that game.
Yes.
So I don't have to remember every single one. I think we got to figure it out, right? I think we got to figure out our previous conversation, which may or may not have been recorded. Chris is a coin winner. Yes. Great guy, yes. Super individual.
Trazerite player.
Friends all, but a long-time Trazerite player, trying out Rochelle for the first time, really going after it. Just got done with some of the paint job. Beautiful stuff.
Gorgeous models.
Takar Hunter, leader, alternate leader. Mender, Ritikar, mounted Ritikar, mounted Cutikar, Reva's Kindred Hero. There's somebody else in there. But the picture is going to be on Painting Show.
They will.
So
yeah.
You can see the whole force. And then I was my all-female bandits, Black Rose Bandits, Black Rose Enchantress with an owl. We'll talk about her.
We'll talk about the owl.
2 Forsworn, 2 converted freebooters where I took a Scrounger, put a tricorn on her and gave her a boarding pike. A Deadeye serving as my mercenary crossbow woman, and some outlaws. Really the game is about you have to solve these trial stones. It's hard to go strong after all 3, obviously. So it's an economy of force type game. So I had a Forsworn on my left, kind of keeping an eye on my leftmost trial stone. And we both had 2 highly mobile models. I had 2 Forsworn. He had a flyer and another cavalry model. And so I brought an Owl Familiar. And it's in my head that one of the things that this can do for me is the Moon's Mark spell, which I love casting and very rarely seen it used. Cast a lot back on, and I was thinking about this, cast a lot back on Tim Gaffney's Fail on Fridays. When Tim was playing a lot, way back when, 2013, 2014, 2015, we go down to his house when he lived in Baser on Friday evenings and play giant games of Freeblades, multiplayer games.
Nice. Yeah,
it was awesome. Famous stuff. Famous moves came out of that. The D30 Search from the Tower. Just, oh my gosh. Anyway, so I cast Moon's Mark a lot during that time period when I was playing Bandits. You get the spell on a target, everybody on your side's a shooter can see them. They can shoot at them even without line of sight. And so, but the Enchantress had to go to where she could see something. It wasn't line of sight. Owl, not so much. The owl has to see the target. But this is, another thing I advise players. I beat a lot of players in competition that are pushing combos.
Right.
So I got to cast Moon's Mark because I've got my 4 shooters and I've got my Owl Familiar and I've got my Enchantress. I need to get in there, find their caster, get the Owl's Eyes on, cast Moon's Mark, and then unload 4 crossbows into it. And never used it in this game because it had nothing to do with winning this game.
It just didn't present itself.
No, right. Wasn't a point where that made sense to do. Instead, enchant, right? So got the owl into a high perch, cast, because it's about model superiority.
Right.
You know, you gotta maneuver and kill enough stuff to be alone. You can't be touching the trial stone, and take a test if there's an enemy touching it also.
Right.
So you got to back him off, or kill him, or clear him out, or panic him, or whatever. And on one turn, I cast enchant on a Richter car and pinned it, because it had a lower chance of passing the spirit test because of the intensify spell on the familiar.
Right.
And then this next turn, he had hit me with a Cuda card and hit and run. He's hit and run to get in behind me. But by my perch, I could still see it easily. So I can, of course, then the Enchantress can see it too, because
right.
he was behind me, going to kill the Enchantress.
It's a do or die situation.
And cast, and he failed the resist test because he was spirit D6.
Nice.
So that allowed me some model superiority, and the Deadeye and the other shooters helped pick off a Reaver's Kindred. I want to say it's Reaver's Kindred. Mm-hmm. That gave me some model advantage of significance. And the Forsworn, I kind of had keeping an eye on my leftmost trial stone, actually killed the thing next to it, and there was no help because Reaver's Kindred couldn't get there after it was dropped. And so she sat there trying to solve that test the rest of the game and failing.
It's really good.
So we've got a Stern talking to you back at camp.
Could not. Yeah.
Sternly worded message from the Black Rose. Dear Forsworn, you're not a valued member of the team.
You're going back to Forsworn school.
Yes, this is why you're Forsworn. But I handled the other two. I got model superiority there, and then was able to pass those tests. And clearly, to me, Chris, great player. Not about that. This is an unfamiliar. The synergies of these things are going to be awesome when he's got it sorted out. He's sorting it out. And I'm there supposed to not make it easy for him, and I didn't. And the one thing I'd just say is, for example, I think he was a little skittish about trying to break the disguise. You have the disguise rule in the familiars because they're, could be any owl flying through the forest.
Sure.
We didn't want to write another rule. Disguise work perfectly. They're not really wearing masks. Right? It's not disguised owl. Oh my God, that armadillo is really an owl.
Yeah. My mind goes back at this point to some campaign we had done in the past. I forget which one it was, but somebody's bear, right? One of the Stoneclaw Savages got disguise, and the big joke was the bear was wearing a disguise.
Right, yeah. As a pizza delivery truck. We don't know, right? Fancy game. Could be anything. That was disguised as a dragon, So, yeah, it's great. It's also the Luke Felix maneuver, take Tarch. Throw Tarch's wild magic disguise spell on the Moon Talon. Right.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
It's just a giant owl. Pay no attention to what's going on over here. Just flapping around, doing owl crap, So, fancy game,
Right.
So I think, it was, that's where it's just sort of getting used to the thing. How do I break disguise? It's a knowledge test. My shooters can take it right before they shoot without spending an action. Kind of get in that zone. Right. To spend it, was it worth it? Would it have been worth it for him to spend resources? The Reaver's Kindred shooting the Richter car, shooting the owl.
Maybe he probably won't let it go again.
Right. So no, that's why you play the game against me at tabletop. So when you go to the con, I've seen that already.
That owl dies.
Yeah. So anyway, great game. Chris is a super guy. I think he's going to be a dangerous Michelle player. He was all sexed up in Quick Strike. Not something the Trazrites give you. So
that's right.
You get to go first. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm expecting to die. So just kill me with a big sword. Anyway, great game. So awesome. And pictures of it on Discord.
Yeah, so All Things Phalon, there are some pictures from that game last week that are out now. So it's going to be about 2 weeks when you all are hearing this. But it should be there. There's like 8 or 9 of them. So it's a big group of pictures. And they're because both sides were painted, everything was gorgeous. They were playing on beautiful scenery that had been done by Aaron Newell. And it was just a beautiful table. It was a beautiful game. Very easy to sit around and just snap pictures of all night. A couple of mine came out blurry. I was so embarrassed, but I didn't throw them up there, of course. But
the owl looked
so great.
All of Chris's stuff in the owl looked good.
John's down on himself about his paint jobs.
No, I'm not telling myself. I am the Henry Ford of painters. You have a single beautifully painted model. I have 10 okay models. Mr. Porsche, that's fine. I tool around my Model Ts all day. So
old reliable.
That's right.
All right. Our main topic today is going to be our Freeblades Living Rule Book. 25.1 just came out at Adepticon, before Adepticon. It has the new rules for VAR crawl in it and a few other things that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But for all of our new players, and as John was pointing out a few minutes ago, for our old players as well, we really want to talk about what the Living Rule Book is, why we use one, and the advantages of it over some of the other systems. So, John, how is the Freeblades Living Rule Book different than rule books used by some of the other gaming companies?
I think every other. I've been thinking about it. There's been a move to where some of it's a hyperlinked PDF. It's a web optimized hyperlinked PDF. That's the only form it comes in. Okay. It costs you $10 once.
Right.
You get all the updates for the rest of your life for free. No one does that.
If you take a demo at one of our
if you take a demo and you get a demo card, you get the first one for free, so you never pay for a rule book.
Right.
Which contains, and Matt and I were talking earlier, and possibly being recorded. There
is a flag flying from producer Jager.
Yeah,
you can guess what it is.
Not all communications verbal. A good friend of ours, Ash Barker, super individual, top designer, popular gaming industry personality, did one of his episodes on our rule book, and he talked about, it was favorable, generally speaking, he talked a lot about the page count, and the issue is, from our standpoint, the page count is not a disadvantage.
Right.
It's just what it is, because we have put all these things into a single product so that we can link them all. If you're in a scenario, and the scenario references a stage of the sequence of play or a keyword or a rule, you hyperlink back into it. If the scenarios were in the scenario PDF, couldn't do that. You couldn't do it as easily. You could actually get to one if they're in the same network, in the same space, blah, 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 blah. But, some of our folks just getting to open a...
My eyes are already glazed over.
Right. So. See, we're just not going to ask that of our players.
And we don't need to.
No, we don't.
We shouldn't.
We don't, It is... so the idea being that we put all of these things, what to another company might be a rule book, a scenario book, a campaign book, a set of codexes on the factions, and whatever else, into one single product that is connected throughout, index to the rules, to the table of contents, to the keywords, sequence of play, terrain keywords, stat lines. Everything's connected, right? So not caring about the page count is what got us there.
Right.
So somebody says, how big is your rule book? It's 300 pages, but it's not a 300-page rule book. Right. Now, we do think the rules are too long.
We have come to that conclusion.
Yeah, the separate podcast, we're going to talk about what we're going to do about that.
Right.
We're going to talk about the 2.0 project. But the game is crunchier than we think we want to be going forward, and we're going to fix that. But for today, 25.1, the rules section is not 300 pages.
No.
It's extensive. It's longer than we want it to be, but it's nowhere near that much. You have all of how to do a campaign, all 28 scenarios, all of the factions, every model's stat line is in that rule book. You're not buying the Bandit Codex and the Valkarn Codex and whatever else. It's all in one place. Right. And we think the advantages outweigh the disadvantage of that. So
we do. Ease of use.
Ease of use, right there at the table. I'm not, schlepping my 3 rule books in here. They're not EPUBs that are just flat with no connectivity, and you can't change the page size. It's as friendly as we can possibly make it. Right.
Rather than one of us standing there answering all your questions.
It's interesting.
I knew that would get it.
As an aside, right? As an aside, if I because we just did this experiment at the North American Championships, 24 players, right? All getting along, all reading the rule book on their phones and tablets, all just happy clams. No questions, and I made the joke about being the Maytag repairman. Of course,
Right,
I'm a Gen Xer. Nobody got what I was talking about. So I'm just sitting there.
Sad.
I know it is sad. It's sad when you're so-called pop culture. It's pop. I don't know how culture it is. So we're sitting there, and I'm talking to Colin, I'm talking to Jeff, and I said, "Watch this. We've been an hour without a single rules question. If I get up and walk down the row, a minimum of 5. Okay, because instead of going to their phone or their the rule book and checking the answer, as I walk by, stop looking, put the phone down. Hey, John, da 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 da. Right,
Right.
But if you just sit down, well, they'd have to call you over to the table, and the rule book's right there in their hand. They don't do it, And I was like, this 5. I hadn't even gone 10 feet. I got won that bet. But very accessible,
Right. Very accessible.
Yeah.
So we produce 2 to 3 new editions each year, usually 3.
Right now it's 3. Yeah.
Right, because we release models 3 times a year.
Right.
How much new information, how much change is there in each of these new editions?
That's a great question, Matt.
Thank you.
Lore Master Matt. So first of all, with a release, the models that are new are going to be in there.
Right.
Always. So for sure, because we do it 3 times a year when we release models, there's always new models in it.
Right.
Okay. In this case, 25-1, a brand new faction of our Crown Unchained.
Right.
So you have a faction stat summary and a spell list. Well, not a spell list, mantra list, because they're focus users. Are monks, basically.
Right.
So you have our Crown Unchained stat summary, and all those models are in there. And then their talents and skills get woven into the advancement tables in the campaign section.
Right.
Another reason why it would be problematic to have a separate campaign book.
Can you imagine charging people every time we release new figures? Oh, wait, we know several companies that do.
All of them? Yeah. Almost all of them, right? So, yeah, we want you to buy models.
Right.
That's where we're at. And copies of our board game, but we'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that later, too.
So, isn't that cover sweet?
Yeah. It's just beautiful. Oh, my gosh.
Anyway, Matt and I saw the draft cover of our new board game today. We're all excited about it. So, we'll talk about that later. But it's still exciting.
Teaser.
So a new set of models, always.
Right.
And then if there's errata, if we've discovered something that is problematic for the players to understand or read, and we can clean it up, fix a problem, and that has been over time driven down to very little. I'm not sure there is an errata in 25-1.
I don't remember there being, but
I mean, there's for example, if you go into the talent section,
right,
there'll be a magenta fighting spirit.
Of course.
Right? It's
right.
magenta because it's new to 25-1 from 24-3.
Which is also another thing that we should highlight, that all of the new stuff that's in there is going to be highlighted in a magenta color so that you know it's new.
Or if it's entirely new faction stat summary, it will say new on the top.
Right.
We don't want to have magenta every line of that page. But
so
the talents and skills that show up in magenta, so you can flip through it. There's also a what's new section at the beginning, which just lists what's new on one page. Just saying. So if I go into the talent section, but Fighting Spirit is on an errata.
Right.
It's an addition.
Right.
We've added that talent to the game, and the entire thing is in magenta to highlight that it's new. But as far as a regular rule, a core rule, having been modified due to errata, I'm not sure there is one in this version. In fact, I'd have to look and see.
There's not.
The's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Producer Jagger wings in with his see how easy it is to get on. You can even do it while you're running a podcast. Okay. Listen. So, so primarily the number one thing we wanted to do, and the reason why we got into it in the first place, because we did produce our first rule book was a physical rule book.
Right.
We found that there was a errata built up. We had the same problem a lot of other companies did, as we did, ourselves playing other games. I play other games.
Sure.
I get an errata. I have to go get that. I am playing a game about a popular fantasy background written by an English gentleman in the first part of the 1900s. And I'm very much into that setting, so I play that game, and the errata comes out as PDFs per book because there are several books you need to buy to play it.
Right.
So if I have 5 books I need to play the game, I also have 5 errata documents. That's 10 things.
And you got to find some place to put those and some way to easily access them.
You can get the EPUBs.
Sure.
The way those EPUBs are done are just not.
They're not friendly.
They're not
user friendly.
They're not friendly to me. So I shake my fist at them and say, "Get off my EPUB." But anyway, so and I like we were talking. I think about that, and I did buy all those books, and I rebought them for this edition, for this other game. And I think about that with a friend of mine who is not in the same economic situation, and how unfair that is.
Yeah.
You know, and so we're not those people.
Right.
The bottom line of a Living Rule Book program is we're just not going to be those people. Buy our models, not our rules.
Happy to sell you the models.
Yes.
Right.
And we will do printed products that are standalone and don't change. Like we're going to do elements of the world, source books.
Right.
There'll be physical products in addition to getting the digital edition. And because we want to show you great art, tell you great stories, but there's no errata, to a source book, right? It's all like a rule.
We hope
I don't like the name of that god. We're going to change it. No. So that will come in the future, but that's not what we're going to do our rule book. The rule books are living, and that's literal.
Right. So how do you get the Freeblades Living Rule Book?
A couple of ways. You can always buy it from the website. It's in a store. There's a rule book section. It's a downloadable product. You don't physically get sent one, but you get instant gratification. You buy it, you get it right then.
Love that instant gratification.
And then you have to make an account to do that. When you make the account, the rule book order stays in your account. This is on the front page. The bottom of the front page of the website tells you how to do what I'm saying right now.
Right.
When you get notified by us that there's an update, you can go to that order and re-download it. The order will say 25.1.
Right.
But if it changes to 25.2, when you go to download it, you will get 25.2.
Right.
The order will say whatever you originally ordered of that.
Which is the genius of the system, right? Because once you buy one or you get one from one of our demos, you are set for life.
Set for life.
Right. You just go back in there and re-download the newest edition, and you do so for free.
Right. So there's also, you asked how many, the other way, of course, you go to, that's buying it, you pay your $10.
Right.
You can get a code to get it for free. If you're a new player, you take a demo from us at one of our conventions.
Right. So
so Matt was giving those out at Adepticon.
Yeah.
You weren't, unfortunately.
No,
Sorry.
not this one.
Not this one. But the crew was giving those out.
So we have, I know, so sad. So you have the folks on the floor that are playing the full-length demo games that are giving those out. And then you also have Julie at the booth who's running the 15, 20-minute demo that runs you through a turn, and she's handing those out as well.
Yeah, 15 minutes. If you take the short demo, 15 minutes, the rulebook's free, you never pay for it for life. Who gives you that value? No one.
No one. That's right. No one.
Okay.
So I know a lot of times I'll be talking to a player, and we'll be talking about the new rule book or new figures or new rules or something, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've got to get that updated." Right, and it's clear they haven't done that in a year or something, and they're running on 23.3 or something. Why should our players run right now and get 25.1?
Because of bar crawls? Is this a trick question?
It's an easy question. Yeah, it is. Bar crawl, obviously.
Bar crawl. Well, also because even if you don't ever buy a bar crawl model and don't care to know how they play in advance when you meet them, which is unlikely, you also might be able to access some of the things they do in a campaign when your model's advanced.
That's exactly right. Right.
Right.
And so besides bar crawl, we talked a minute ago about there being no errata. Is there anything else in 25.1 that's new?
Yeah, let me refresh myself here on
what's new.
But Jager's always looking there, right?
He's already there.
He's already there. Oh, I'll borrow yours. Thank you. Okay, Living Rule Book 25.1. What's new section? The new stats summary for the Varkrell and Unchained. New primary skill focus, which is what they use. They don't have casters. And then some new talents. And one new weapon added to the weapons tables.
Oh, what's the new weapon? sorry.
No. It's linked. I'll just tap on the link, right, and see what new weapon is added to the weapon table. The Dread Spear
Nice.
on the Varkrallen Dread Hunter. So as a demonstration, which you can see because this is a podcast, I'm holding Jager's phone, and he had called up Freeblades Living Rule Book 25.1s in What's New section. In the What's New section, I read that there was a new weapon, parentheses, page 92, in the blue of a hyperlink. Tapped it, went there, Dread Spears on the melee table in magenta.
Sounds simple to me.
No one's
just downloaded it while we were recording.
Somebody else that didn't have a copy of 25.1. Our lovely producer, Jager. Okay, there you go. That's a good demo.
That's a great demo, right? That's just proved all
too
our points.
much, yeah. Absolutely. Too funny.
All right, to finish out our podcast today, we are going to do our job board. And today we're going to talk about why question.
Why? Why did you do this? Why can't I have this? Why should... Okay, so I apprenticed with a couple of semi-famous or famous, depending on your time period, game designers, one of whom was Stephen V. Cole, the designer for Starfleet Battles. A long time friend and just a great human. Taught me a great deal about designing games, about running a game company, or trying to advise me not to do it, which is what he really did. But they would get questions about the Starfleet rules and not answer them. The ones that came in that were why, okay? And what they would do is they would save them and they would answer them in a column in Captain's Log, which was their printed fan magazine about the game, about their universe, Starfleet universe. But also, Stephen, known in the same way that Gene Roddenberry is known as the Great Bird of the Galaxy, we called him the Great Bird of the Galaxy, the GBG. He would hold court at these conventions, and all the fans of the game would gather in a ballroom or whatever. And one of the things they did was just let it open to why questions. Why does this weapon interact with this device this way? Why did you decide to have this, go this way instead of that way, whatever? We do the same thing in a way. And I do that because of what he taught me. You've got a duty to answer rules questions. Absolutely. You've got a duty to work on the next project. You don't have a duty to answer why questions if it interferes with the first two. So get around to it. But don't let it distract your focus from what you're really doing for the player, which is making sure they get help if they have a question about actually playing the game and to make the next product for them. Right. So we have a place called Designer's Notes on Discord, which is where we'd like why questions to go. Sleeping, and right now the Designer's Notes is all be discussion about line of sight. Right. Which Roger, Rexroad, a good friend of ours, a fan of the game, a quester. I opened up the question about LOS to the players, kind of with a caveat about you can do this in a bunch of different ways. Everybody's got a different opinion about it. How do you can't please everyone. What do you do? And then let the discussion go. And immediately there are 50 different ways to do it. Right. And we're going to choose one. Proving your point. Proving my point. And he did. He messaged me. He goes, oh my gosh, you couldn't have, you couldn't have set that up any better because nobody's going to agree on how to handle this. You're going to have to just pick the best one that, serves the most players in the shortest amount of space in the rule book. That's what we're going to do. So, which is what we did in the first place. Still not, pleasing everybody. But we would like to shorten it. We would like to simplify it. Yes. So we're going to do that. And ultimately, line of sight is one of those things that people argue about. But right now, that is the place to ask why questions. Just be aware, at the moment, there's a raging discussion about LOS going on. Maybe we need to move it to its own channel or something. Channel for LOS. That's the place to go. The second, right? Well, I was thinking there's a channel for Streamline, for the project to streamline the rules. We should probably get that moved over there. You're right. So Designer's Notes, hashtag Designer's Notes is the channel on Discord for why questions. There's also the job board, what we're doing today. So we're in the Sleeping Grush podcast, bring up a job board question. Those are why questions. We'll do them here. That's right. So I'm going to give you an example of the kind of question. It's a why question. We just can't get to all of the ones that we get asked, and the why of the why.
Right.
Okay, the why we don't always. This is a great example. And the asker is a good friend of mine. He'll recognize this question, but I'm not going to name names because it's not only this person asks this question. I get asked this kind of question a lot. Okay, the question was, if you're on our website, we do sell through a third-party vendor swag.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the kinds of swag. I am proudly wearing a Trillion T-shirt today. Okay. T-shirts.
He told me it was dirty. I don't know what that's about.
No, that's the list I'm going to beat Jager with. So, five blade edges. So, there's also mugs, and then there's prints, and some of the prints are maps. Right. One of the maps, the map of Phelan, and around the border are the faction symbols.
Yeah.
Okay.
I probably have one on my wall.
Right. There's one here at Copper Corner.
That's right.
The question was, can I get, and it was worded that way, right? Can I get a canvas map of just the map without the faction symbols? Okay, here's the thing. Forget the particulars of the question, right? It's about the general nature of the question because it applies to so many other things we do because we're a business.
Right.
We are transparent. We are friends with our customers.
Yes, very much.
We're transparent to a painful degree, I have to say.
In many cases, yeah.
We love it, but it costs, And so, but we still have to run it like a business. We can't just give stuff away for free. We'll die.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a third-party vendor that sells these things, and we load them onto the website. Right. If I had a map, I could just load and they printed it when it was, asked for on demand. That would be easy. I would do it. Mm-hmm. The map is a square. The canvas frame is a rectangle.
Right.
Okay. That's why there's a place with the symbols because it makes it into a rectangle. Right. If I were going to find a way to give someone that map, I would have to either go research if there's any way that our third-party vendor can produce a square instead of a poster size, in canvas, right? Or, have a one-off made, and this links to, as an example, the great time period where we sold to a third-party vendor phone cases.
Yeah.
You guys should do phone cases. Everybody would buy them. I want a phone case. Put phone cases in the swag area. No one bought them.
Right.
Okay. Right. So to generate one, it's like saying, I'd like a printed rule book.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you print the rule book? Why, Matt? Why can't I have a printed rule book? If I were going to print a rule book, we'd have to do the rule book differently.
Yep.
It is an optimized PDF, RGB, not CMYK. And if you don't know what that means, you shouldn't be asking for a printed book. It just occurred to me. That should be the test. You know what the difference between RGB and CMYK is? No, forget it. You're not getting a printed book. Okay. It would have to be according to the template of whoever, in this case, probably drive-through. Right. Drive-through RPG. To have a print-on-demand rulebook, they would give us their template, and we'd have to take what we had and completely ingest it into that new template.
Right.
For how many customers?
Right.
Okay. And if that hours of work that we did to put that in there, or if we paid someone to do it, the money that we paid them, am I getting more than that back? How many people really want a living rule book printed that will become technically obsolete in August? Right. We will release 25.2 at Gen Con because we're releasing 8 new models.
Right.
Possibly a couple new scenarios, which also require, new stuff. And whatever else we might want to put in there. So that will become the new rule book. And when I go to load in, I'd have to do it again.
Right.
I'd have to do it again. It is not cost beneficial to serve one person, or a handful of people. And a whole bunch of people would buy it is market research you have not done. Okay, right?
We have experience that says that's not true.
Yes. Okay. And we've tried it. We've done things based on a couple of folks wanting something and trying to convince us that there was a groundswell and it didn't go anywhere, and we either burned ourselves or lost some money or lost some time, and we have to make those business decisions.
Right.
So am I stopping working on the Streamline project or the board game or the Oracle, or any of these other projects to take time to go research whether our third-party vendor could do a square canvas,
Right.
or what we might put on either side of it to kind of fill the space that isn't faction symbols. But why don't you just have the faction symbols instead?
Right.
Because what's wrong with that? And so, or if there was some other third-party vendor that plugged into our back end of the way our website works,
Right.
that would give you a square for no money, because we're not going to make much on this one map that we sell.
Right.
Right. If it was like 1,000, it'd be different, and if it becomes 1,000, that'll be different. We'll have a different answer.
Sure.
Okay. So it's a business decision. It's often a choice between, and the one way I like to illustrate it is this: pick up a rule book of any game. It doesn't have to be, the most popular game on the planet. Any sort of mid-range or higher game. Open to the credits page. It's probable that game's company's janitorial department is bigger than our company. Okay? There might be as many as 100 names on that page between playtesters, sculptors, cartographers, illustrators, designers, developers, producers, printers, whatever. Okay, there's 7 of us.
Right.
And we are lifting above our weight. We are punching
way
above our weight
weight
class.
Yep.
We're doing things other companies aren't doing with 7 people. That square canvas is not on John's list of things to do today.
Right.
But we will answer your why questions. We come immediately back, and we got some compliments this week about it, with a rules question. Nobody does that better. Nobody answers a rules question faster than we do.
It amazes me. Right? Like, it's like they say Colin's name 3 times and he appeared in a mirror,
With bad eye makeup. Striped suit. So, it's Colin here for the Microgate. And the thing is, we're transitioning. He's working on Shadowed Streets, another game project, which is why Colin is now researching square canvases. And it's when the map becomes a rectangle, one of the things we will do is when we add the Southern Continent, we will be sensitive to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? Down the road. So these things you ask don't get thrown away. They get put on the master dashboard for when we can, we will.
That's right.
Okay?
Right. It's not like we're ignoring them. It may seem like it, but we are actually pushing them somewhere in a list of these things that we'll
get to
do.
Yeah. Well, as a priority, because we have to do the priority tab.
Right.
And I'm trying to think right off the top of my head, I cannot think of one of these things we have just plain ignored, just thrown in the trash bin. I will have to go look. I
have never known us to do that. Now, there may have been one or something that I was not aware of, or we were like out of hand, just like, I can't imagine.
I can't. Yeah,
that we do that.
We'll go look we'll keep an eye on that. We typically put it in the vault. We come back to it when we can come back to it. Sometimes we're doing things. I mean, Varkrell's been on the map since I made the map.
Right. Exactly.
And
if you guys, it's funny being on the outside of things and being on the inside of things. If our notes were physical, we'd be drowning in them.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
We have just
plans, things to do. Yeah.
They're just
thousands of pages.
Yeah, exactly. Thousands of pages of stuff. My note app on my phone is using more memory than anything else on my phone, right? Because I'm constantly taking notes and we're clearing them as we get to them and take care of those.
Yeah. As a thing about that, this is an example. Today I was working on the adventure for DonCon, Kelly is Gold.
Right.
And it takes place during the Jaguar Crusade, which we're going to tell the story of and highlight as we move along very soon. I ran this adventure in Brightsword. The ship that comes to you when Ularum, the city in Thormanal, locks down in wartime, the ship that comes out and meets you to do a customs inspection and let you into the harbor. I know the name of that ship and the name of the captain because I named them. We have to pull this stuff.
Yes.
We've already done it, so why do it twice? Right. We don't need the chief of the naval operations of Ularum, today. But when we do need them, we don't want to. And so that stuff's all stored somewhere.
That's
and
right.
It is gigabytes of stuff.
It is.
So, anyway, ask you why. It won't get answered as quickly as a rules question because nothing does. Your why questions go into. Sometimes we get to them on designer stuff. Sometimes we don't. They do go into the vault.
That's right.
Maybe we'll do phone cases someday. Who knows? Again. After we abandon that project, but not today.
Keep asking the why questions.
Okay. Yes, please do.
Please do. And put those on the Sleeping Grush podcast channel.
Yep,
There on
board.
Discord. Or drop them into the designer's
Yeah,
notes
those.
where they'll get.
And I'll go clean up designer's notes of the LOS discussion again. So we can use designer's notes for how it's intended. And also we need to restart the designer's block. That's what I think my notes from this week.
Yeah. I was
Especially
thinking
with
about that the
2.0
other day.
being worked on, we need to start that.
We are, and guys, stand by for a special announcement about that soon too.
Yeah.
John and I have been talking about doing a little special on that, and that's something that you're gonna want to see. It's gonna be a lot of fun to do, and it's gonna be in a new format that we haven't tried before. So lots of cool things going on there. So stand by for that. In the meantime, guys, we're really, really thankful that you're listening to us and that you're interacting with us online. And we can't say enough how thankful we are that you guys are leaving likes on these YouTube videos and every place that you're listening to the podcast.
We're also very
John is-
thankful. What? John's
He's
like,
giving me this look.
giving Jacob this look.
devilish
I'm
look.
giving you a side eye. I'm also very thankful that we've gotten all the way through this recording correctly. I think that middle
Flag
finger
again.
sign. Well, go number one. Yes, I think we did. Until next time, he's
I'm Lore Master Matt,
Phelan John
and we'll see you around the table.
Silsakava.